Hello everyone and welcome to the very 6th Don't Be Bored podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about what I'm currently backing on Kickstarter and if I think it's actually a good idea or should I sort of reduce my pledge a little bit. I'll also be talking about Earth, which I did a hint at the end of the last podcast that I would be playing, so a little first impression and well maybe a little bit more. You'll have to keep your ears open to find out. So let's jump into Kickstarter. At the moment I am backing the Santorini Kickstarter. I'm currently in all in. So I'm there for the Pantheon pledge, which is effectively the standard base game, slightly nicer components, slightly pimped a little bit, and all of the god powers. That's what I'm really interested in, just to get that sort of complete collection for Santorini. I'm also currently backing for the new expansion, the Riddles of the Sphinx, and this is where I'm questioning my backing. First of all, it's the price of a full game, then you've got the postage and packaging, you've got VAT, etc. And at the moment there's not too many extra things that you're getting for backing that, although it does seem that that's not going to come to retail, so you've got to sort of bear that in mind. Now I liked the idea, and I'd like to dabble with this sort of cooperative, but I'd probably play it solo, as they are very much puzzles in the Santorini universe. However, I'm not sure that I would actually play it enough to warrant getting it. It's not the sort of game that I would get out. I very rarely solo games, so it would basically be every now and again, or when it arrives, I'd get it out, play it solo a bit. Would I ever get it out for co-op? Because that's what it's being sold as. It's being sold as a co-op expansion. Even though I would see myself probably playing it more as a solo puzzle, is there actually any draw for me to play that as co-op? I don't know. I'm going to wait until near the end of the campaign to see if there's some cool extras that they do throw in the end. But at the moment, I'm not sure. There's also synth cards, which I'd not really heard of before, but they're effectively offering the opportunity to upgrade the standard cards to these sort of almost plastic ones that you can bend and they'll like snap back. I absolutely think that's incredible. But in Santorini, you don't really play with the cards that much. You shuffle them maybe to deal a god out, and then the rest sit in the box and the god card sits in front of you. It's not like a game that's heavily using them, so they're not really going to get that much wear and tear. This is where a little bit of that FOMO comes in, I think, because I've had this with a few campaigns where it's like, you know what, I could upgrade that component, but I don't need to, because that's not going to get shuffled, it's not going to get used that much, therefore it's not going to get that level of wear and tear that would really warrant me upgrading. Now don't get me wrong, there's certainly some times where, nice plastic token rather than a cardboard token feels better. Maybe if it's in a bag and you're pulling from the bag it's nicer, or if you're just generally taking them as resources. That's a nice upgrade, but in Santorini, you're not playing with that card. You're never really holding that card, which means you've drawn the card, you put it in front of you to remind you of your power. I don't know if I need to upgrade them. But why I say it's upgrade is sort of a little bit of a FOMO is the fact that it's actually a really cheap amount. Subjectively cheap. I think it's like $9 or £9 to basically convert all of the cards from Pantheon into the synth style, and the same again for the Riddles of the Sphinx. Now, £9 to do all those cards doesn't sound much, but then when you're actually saying it's £18 because you've got to do it for both, it's starting to add up, and that's on top of not being 100% sure if I want that Riddle of the Sphinx expansion. I have an idea that unless this really wows me, I will manage my pledge down to just getting the Pantheon edition. Maybe get the Pantheon edition and the Riddle of the Sphinx, dropping the £20 cost of those synth cards. I'm not sure. But yeah, what's one question I had for anyone listening is that something that you would do? Do you back what you're expecting and then maybe lower it, or do you back at a small amount and then up it? I know I want at least the Pantheon edition. And at the time, I think I wanted to try the co-op. But I think as the campaign's going on, I'm realising I'm probably not going to play it and will reduce down. Is that something you do, or am I backwards in terms of should I have gone for the small amount and then maybe upgraded later? That is normally what I do. In this case, it just wasn't though. Now onto a game that I have recently played, very much a latest hotness, the recent hotness, sorry, and that is Earth. It is being talked about on pretty much any board game forum or Facebook page or Discord or whatever at the moment, and that's because it's got some big names associated to it. Not in terms of maybe the designers or not necessarily even the publisher, but the games that it's being sort of put in the same bubble as, in the same ballpark as. I've heard Terraforming Mars. More correctly, I think Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, Ark Nova, and even Wingspan. Now let's go through them. First of all, like I said, Terraforming Mars, it's got lots of symbols, but I think it's much closer to Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, and that's because of the way the sort of actions actually activate. And that's a really lovely part of Earth, is when you choose to do an action on your turn, everyone else around the table does that action, but like a lesser amount. I can't remember the exact amount, but let's say it is to get its soil. Well, you get 5 soil and you do something else. I think it's maybe like, let's say it's draw or compost 2 cards. Well, everyone else gets the option of either to compost 2 cards or only draw 2 soil. I think that's the correct one. Like I say, it's my first play and I very much enjoyed it, but I'm not going to know everything 100%. But I really like that idea of, even on everyone else's turn, you're getting something that's good for you, because you're getting a small something, and normally you're getting a small something with a bit of a choice. It was very rare, and I think it would be very rare for you to ever have a bad turn, even on someone else's turn. The only time I could see it happening is when they take like growth and you don't have anywhere to grow. That's quite early on that might happen, but towards the end you've probably got some space on your board. And then like maybe when you plant a card, if you've not got the soil to afford the card you want to spend yet, pay for yet, maybe that would be irritating. But even then, chances are you are doing something on your turn, doing something good even on someone else's turn. And that's why it feels like Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, because of that sort of, it's your turn, but you're choosing something, you get a better version of it, and I get a lesser version. Yes, it's got those tags, which I think that's where it's being drawn to Ark Nova and Terraforming Mars. It's got lots of different things on, if you play this card, every mushroom card is 1 cheaper, or maybe every one with a sun symbol on in this column will grow as well when you grow, and different things like that. So you can make cards cheaper and stuff like that, and there's the various ways to gain points and stuff like that. And then there is the wingspan element. Now I think the wingspan element is, I can kind of see where it's coming from, but there is no sort of choice of cards in the market. They are sort of very much random, so there is that part of it. But I think the link some people are making to wingspan is the stuff that's on your cards and their abilities that trigger. So much like in Wingspan, when you've built up sort of some cards on one of the rows, you take that row's action, it triggers all of those abilities. Bit like that, when you choose, say, the plant a card action, not only will you plant a card, everyone else might be able to, you plant up to 2, everyone else plants up to 1, but you're also triggering your green abilities. And I think that's maybe where that sort of some of that logic has come from. combo that with the fact that there's stuff being built on them. So some cards in Wingspan don't, well, very few cards in Wingspan don't let you put any eggs down, but a lot of them have like maybe a little amount, some of them huge amount of room to put eggs on, eggs being a resource but also points. In Earth, you've got some that have space for growth and also cubes. I can't remember what the cubes are called. They might be called growth and the tree trunk bits or whatever that is. Not growth. Anyway, either way, there's a couple of things that you can build on cards that you can actually spend at different times, maybe for the soil, which is the resources or whatever. So putting all that together, I can see where people are getting these big names from, and I have to admit, I even said this is a direct quote of what I texted my friend Paul afterwards. Damn it, I need this game. Now, I said at the end of the last podcast, I was going into it expecting good things, because a lot of people have been, you know, drawing some sort of conclusions from those other games that I really like. So I was like, it's going to probably be good, but if it's only good, I can play it, enjoy it, move on. Unfortunately, it's going to cost my wallet because, yeah, it's certainly a good game. It worked really well at 2 players, which is what I played it at. But I can see it working, even if it goes a little bit longer, I can see it working very well at all the way up to the 4-player count as well. And that's simply because of the limited downtime. And even though you're adding more players, I don't think you're necessarily just adding full extra lumps of time, because remember, you're not waiting for your turn. Other people are doing things. If the other 2 players take soil in a 3-player game, you, as the secondary sort of lesser actions, have still over that almost gained the same amount they have from taking the primary option of it. And, you know, if you're waiting to plant that one card and someone else around the table takes the plant a card action, they can put 2 down, but you can put the one you are hoping to down. So there's some real choices of what action to take, and I think that'll only come out after multiple plays. The deck is huge. That's maybe where people are comparing it to Arc Nova as well, not just like the tags. The deck is huge, you can't necessarily get through that deck, so you kind of got a little bit of luck from the deck, but a bit like with Arc Nova, if you go into the game knowing that and being sort of happy to not roll with the punches, but just sort of work with what you're given and get the best out of what you've got, well, then I think Earth could be a game for you. I certainly want to play more of it to see if some of the sort of good things I think about the game, like, you know, the sort of way you can build out your 4x4 grid actually has that much of an impact. It was only my first game. I wasn't 100% sure of what I was doing half the time in terms of when I was placing the cards. How much does that actually impact how good a card is or bad a card is for you? Because there could be some times where if you've ordered your cards in a nice way, because you have to trigger them from the top left basically down to the bottom right, sort of going across and downwards, then there could be some times where you gain the resource and then are able to spend it, rather than have to spend it, maybe not have it, and then gain it. So there's definitely some bits and pieces in there that I think could trip you up and make some choices very interesting as a result. So yeah, I liked Earth. I think maybe it is worth the praise that it's getting from my first play. I want to get the game now, and definitely, yeah, I think maybe I'll have to try and pick that up at UK Games Expo, because it looks like it's going to be there. And while we're on the topic, UK Games Expo is, well, kind of just round the corner. We're under 50 days till the event now. At some point, they're going to release the full exhibitor list, and I'll be able to go through it and try and pick out some games that are really going to be worth seeing at the convention. I'm only going to be there for about a day and maybe a little bit, maybe a couple of hours on the Saturday, depending on how early I wake up sort of thing. So I'm not going to be there for the full 3 days, but there's still going to be a lot of stuff there that, well, I'll miss some of because I won't be able to get round it all. But there should be some pretty cool games, as always, to play. Now, what I would advise, if it is your first time going to a convention or whatever, UK Games Expo is normally quieter on the Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's the biggest and busiest day in terms of volumes of people and that. And then the Sunday, it feels like a wind down day. It's a bit of an odd one, and I think this happens at multiple conventions because it also happens at Spiel, Essen Spiel as well. The weekdays, obviously, you have to be a bit more committed to. Last year was a bit of an anomaly, and that was because it was in the UK there was a bank holiday, so everyone had the day off, so the Friday was pretty busy as well. But we're back to normal this year, and it means the Friday, if you're going to go, because you pretty much have to take the day off work to go and do it, it's a little bit quieter, and that just means you can get on a few more demos. It's easier if you're trying to pick up your tickets that day, etc, etc. So it's just that bit sort of smoother day if you're only there for one. The Saturday, obviously, it's a weekend, so it is that bit more busy. No, you won't be able to get to every single game because sometimes, yes, it might have sold out on the Friday. Chances are at UK Games Expo that's not really a thing. There's very few occasions where it's a game that's super hot at UK Games Expo. Yes, there's some games that are just about to come out, but normally they're releasing and you can get them online anyway. If you're going to something more like Essen Spiel, yes, a game can have sold out within the first hour on the first day. If for whatever reason it's super hot, and the publisher, whatever, has only managed to ship like 100 copies in for the show, they could have sold within the first hour. Sometimes they will spread them out, so maybe they got 100 copies, 30 copies on day 1, 30 copies on day 2, and 30 copies on day 3. That sort of thing. They do that sometimes, it just depends. But at UK Games Expo, there's not really normally one game that everyone's sprinting to buy. There might be a game, however, that people want to rush in to go and demo first because they sort of perceive it to be the latest hotness, and they think that, well, I want to try that game. If I get there later, there's going to be a bit of a queue for it. And that does happen for some. I remember, I think it was 3, maybe 4 years ago. I can't even remember what the game was now. But I managed to get there, sit down, start having the game taught to me, and while there was the 2 tables of the game, there was like a queue for at least another 3rd table waiting, and it's like, we've only just started, this is going to last like at least 30-40 minutes if we wrap it up short, because sometimes at the demos at conventions they go, right, it's a 3-round game but we're only going to do 2 to allow other people in. And it's like, ooh. So yeah, there is some games where it's like, ooh, I need to get there to play it. The UK Games Expo, there's not too much about buy. Even though there's plenty to buy, it's not so much a show, an event purely about buying like that one release. Spiel, on the other hand, yeah, you see people sprinting in because they want to go and get their one copy of the game that everyone wants. You know, think at the moment, like, say it was Earth. Like, say Nowhere has Earth, you can't pre-order it or whatever. Or you can, but it's probably not going to come till December. But Essen Spiel is in like October, so if you can get there and get one of those 100 copies that they've managed to get in there quickly. So yeah, you see people sprinting there, but not so much at UK Games Expo. But let's come back to it. It's Fridays, not too busy. You should be able to get on your demos that bit easier. Saturday, yeah, it's going to be busy, but you're not going to have too much issue buying things or things having sold out. There might be a case where there's the odd game that's not available, but it's rarely a convention where brand new stuff gets shown off. It'll be the latest hotness, but it won't be like oh, this is releasing in a few months' time, but you can pick it up now. Normally, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. And then the Sunday of any convention just seems to be an odd wind down day. I find that the early morning on the Sunday seems super quiet. Then all of a sudden it gets a mad rush up till lunchtime, and it feels like it's almost as busy as Saturday again. And then after lunch it feels like everyone is leaving slowly but surely, and yeah, it feels odd. I mean, everyone is obviously leaving at some point to go home, but it even feels like some of the stalls and everything are winding down. Like towards the end you can go up to an area and they've packed up some of the tables, and it's like, well, technically the convention's still running for another couple of hours or an hour or so, and they're like, yeah, but we're having to sort of wind down because we've got to get out of here by a certain time. So it's an odd one. But yeah, if you're wanting to, so it doesn't feel maybe like a full day, and often they're shorter days as a result of Sunday, because the places do need time to pack away their stalls and everything afterwards. So if you're going, highly recommend a weekday if you can afford the time off work, etc., to go to one of these conventions, because you're probably going to be able to see that little bit more. But if you can't, well, enjoy the crowd on a Saturday and Sunday and you'll still have a great time. But are you going to any conventions this year? I'm hoping to be going to UK Games Expo and Essen Spiel, so the sort of two big ones over here in terms of Europe. So let me know in the comments section below, and thank you for lending me your ear holes for this podcast. Till next time, have a great day gaming.